Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Synchrony success story on implementing a modern switch with OmniPayments. In this presentation, we will talk about the various projects that we've done in Synchrony. We've done a couple of different sprints. So we've implemented modern interfaces, we've implemented modern GUIs, and the biggest of them being we've implemented the full switch. On today's presentation, we have Jeanette, who is our Vice President of Marketing, and we have Vic Katok from Synchrony Financial Services. He's the Vice President of Credit Card Services. Next. The agenda for today's presentation is going to be, first, we will go through a Synchrony company overview. After that, we will talk about the OmniPayments company. Then we will get into the various projects that we've done. So we will talk about the payment modernization. The first steps of the payment modernization were implementing a JSON and XML interface so we could support APIs and we could open up the Tandem platform for new kind of solutions. Later after that, we will get into discussing the switch implementation. And through this, we will show you in a couple of phases and 3 sprints how we were able to implement a modern switch for Synchrony. So at this point, let me turn it over to Vic, who is the Vice President of Credit Card Services at Synchrony Financial Services.
Hi, Yash. Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vic. I work for Synchrony Financial. I've been working here for more than 7 years now. So a little bit about my company. Synchrony is a retail credit card issuer. We have data centers in Texas and Phoenix. Our world headquarters is in Stanford. We have offices in Chicago, Kettering, Ohio, and offshore Hyderabad, India Synchrony offices. So today, so Synchrony deals with all your private label credit cards to dual label credit cards. Dad, can you go next slide, please? And we work with a lot of major companies like Amazon, Cheapo Air, Lowe's, Guitar Center, Gap. We work a lot with the doctor's office. Credit care, we deal with local jewelry stores where 0% credit is required. Synchrony provides that. Also, we just started working with eBay. eBay is one of our very big clients. They've been we just onboarded, and Yash, as you know, your APIs that you helped us with is used by PayPal now to get into come into the Tandem via JSON. So this is some of the businesses we deal with today. Janet, could you please? The biggest challenge we had when I met Yash in 2017, projects were moving out of NonStop because we could not keep up with the moving technology. We were still stuck in Cobalt C. We had a VB front end, and we needed to get something in very quickly, very fast, and which can put us, give us capability to XML and JSON without changing our existing code. And at that time, we met with OmniPayments. We met with Maman, Yash, and their entire team. They looked at our problems and gave us a solution that to test it out in our dev environment. So at that time, we started installing their XML and JSON web services. And within weeks, we had all our packets, all our application data, authorization ISOs converted to JSON and XML, and had it. And we started testing with our clients. I think, Yash, what was it, 2 to 3 weeks, I believe, you had us up and running in dev.
Yeah.
And the best part was we didn't have to buy multiple products. Their one product took care of everything. They took care of our JSON needs, web, and uh, so now our clients can go anywhere they want, however they want to come in. We don't we don't say, oh, you use JSON. We just open our Tandem up to all the web-based applications. Next. So here's our, our front end interface used to be old VB6 front end GUI, and it was very painful. Whenever we wanted to make a change, the deployment was a pain. And so we wanted to transition that. We wanted to get rid of the VB GUI, but also create a client that runs on the NonStop. So we're not relying on any Linux environment or any cloud-based services. So again, at that time, reached out to Yash and team. They came up with a solution within weeks. They started developing our front-end application, and we deployed that in 3 months, early 2019. And another thing that was great about this was not only was web-based, they made it so it looked like how the old GUI was. So people and the clients who uses them did not have a learning curve. The only issue I had was, yes, like you already know, we have COBOL and C developers. We had to change them into Spring Boot and have them learn different. And that was I think the biggest challenge we had. And again, you handheld us and helped our entire dev team get modernized as well. Okay, Yash, back to you.
Vic, thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate your support and the help that you've given us in implementing the solutions at the bank. The team at Synchrony has been fantastic, and without their help, we would not have been able to implement these solutions. Let's now get into details about the OmniPayments company. So the first thing I will talk about is who we are. Our role has been to implement open solutions for the last 25 years. And we have been modernizing payment switches. We've been providing XML web interfaces. We've been providing Visa services. We are very fortunate. We've been doing this for 25 years, and we have several satisfied customers. So it is a very big achievement for all of us. Our offices are in Silicon Valley, and then we have remote data offices in Texas, in Puerto Rico, in Mexico, in a large part of the Latin American countries. And then we have offices in India as well. So it's an international organization. We serve Europe and Asia from our India offices, and we serve the Americas from our US and Latin American offices. Next. So the Omni Journey, at this point, I'm going to get into a little bit of the past. The company started in 1995, and it started as Opsol Integrators, Inc. At that time, the company was started in Silicon Valley, very close to the Tandem offices. I myself, I was the founder and the developer at Tandem for several years. Subsequent to leaving Tandem, I started the company to focus purely on open solutions. And back then, the last project I had done at Tandem was developing the ITP web server to demonstrate the openness of the Tandem platform. I believe ITP web server is a big product today, and many of you are using it. After 1995, the next big thing that happened to us was we took over the entire development for the Atala business group. So all products that run on NonStop, including Boxcar, were built by our company, were built by Opsol Integrators. Our biggest success story came in 2000. We implemented Omni messaging for a large telco in Japan, for KDDI Japan, and that resulted in an implementation of close to about 3,000 CPUs. So it was one of the largest NonStop installations worldwide, and we were very proud that we had been able to implement such a powerful solution and be able to deploy it with triple redundancy. So part of what was happening in Japan was that multimedia messaging was growing. And as the multimedia messaging was coming out, people had started using their mobile phones to send and receive pictures and images. And these pictures and images were being stored in Omni messaging on the NonStop server. Now, the database, the customer base was 40 million users. And so it's a very large customer base. And at any point, if you have failures, that causes availability issues, that causes users to not be able to send their pictures. And so to solve all of these issues, KDDI replaced the Sun installation with a NonStop installation. And Omni messaging was deployed on 3,000 NonStop CPUs. Then in 2004 and 2008, we started building the omni-channel product. The omni-channel product was to provide a common interface across all different touch points. So you could have the same interface at your ATM, same interface at your POS, and from your mobile banking. In 2008, we took the omni-channel product and we were able to replace base 24 for one of the largest US banks. Wells Fargo Bank replaced their base 24 installation with OmniPayments in 2008. And we were processing 40 million transactions per day, close to about 1 billion transactions per month. So that was one of our biggest success stories in the finance space. And after that, we've been productizing, enhancing, and modernizing the entire switch. So what you have now is on the OmniPayments product suite, and that started out in 2008 with the base 24 replacement at Wells Fargo Bank. Subsequent to that, in 2013, we've added solutions for fraud, and we've added rules as well as several fraud checks. There are rule engines that will process the transaction as it enters the system. And so we are able to reduce the fraud online even before the transactions have been authorized. This is a very big benefit for many of our customers because we're using this solution, we are able to reduce the amount of messages that we send on to the authorization engine. Then in 2017, we launched the Omni Cloud X. Omni Cloud X is an interesting growth in addition to what we have been doing in the past with NonStop servers. We also installed NonStop servers in the cloud, and we offered customers a cloud instance of their payment switch. One of the other things that was developed during this period was also faster payments. And I will come back to the Omni Cloud X again later because we have some examples and some scenarios where we've deployed it very successfully. In 2018, we started working with Visa to provide Visa services and Visa value-added services in parts of the United States and Latin America. The traditional Visa ISO has been around for a long time, and almost every bank is using the Visa ISO. In addition to that, we saw the need to implement tokenization, and so we partnered with Visa to implement the Visa tokenization. This allows us to store the Visa tokens on our mobile phones, so we never have to store the card. We also store the Visa tokens in our e-commerce channels, and that allows us to do card on file without actually storing the card. So that is a very, very good benefit for us. It satisfies the PCI requirement, and it also saves us from fraudsters and hackers and all kinds of bad situations. In 2019, we implemented our mobile payments, and we now have a white label mobile app that you can deploy on Android and iPhone to deliver to your customers various kinds of solutions. I will get into more details about our mobile app and the loyalty and the home banking and things like that later on in the presentation. Next. The very first project that we did at Synchrony was to provide an open API framework so Synchrony customers could access the Synchrony services using both JSON and XML. It is very important to understand that with the legacy support and the legacy applications, it had become impossible to grow the applications on the NonStop, and new customers such as PayPal and Amazon were demanding new kinds of APIs and new kinds of services. So we had to find a way to externalize and support both JSON and XML. We provided Synchrony with the OpenAPI Framework. This basically is an OmniPayments product that has an API gateway in it, and it splits the message out. If it's a JSON message, it passes it to the JSON adapter. If it's an XML message, it passes it to the XML adapter. And from then on, we can then pass it into the XML services and JSON services. And those in turn invoke legacy services. And so we are able to reuse the entire infrastructure at Synchrony and yet provide a complete modern open API framework for new customers to connect to Synchrony applications. Next. So one of the things that we have provided and done is we provide the Azure integration web services. So customers can include the OmniPayments APIs inside their Azure infrastructure, and that in turn will then invoke the entire infrastructure on the legacy systems. So it can either go through the OmniPayments cloud, or it can go through through an on-premise implementation as well. Next. The other support that we provided is integration with Amazon Web Services. And so in that scenario, again, we have our API gateway and the Compute EC2 node that runs in the AWS cloud. That in turn can pass the message on to the OmniPayments data center and pass it on further to the authorizer. And then the authorizer provides the legacy infrastructure. So these are the different products that we've integrated, and we've provided these solutions. Next. And so the other part that we've also done is we've provided a Swagger compliant APIs, so the end customers can easily implement and can easily test the APIs that are being offered by our customers. So these are different ways in which we were able to enhance the entire infrastructure at Synchrony, and were able to modernize it. So now people are not stuck with this typical legacy infrastructure that was there in the past. Next. Here is now the architecture diagram of how the Synchrony payment application was modernized. So in the very first phase, or in the first few sprints, we took care of the JSON message flow. The solution itself is fully active, and it routes traffic between the primary NonStop server and the secondary active server to alternate Linux servers. So in the event that any one is down, if either the primary NonStop server is down, or if the backend legacy Linux servers are down, or if any of the servers are down, we are able to route traffic automatically between the various different nodes. Now this automatic failover happens very quickly, and so it's essentially the customer does not see any impact. Next. In the subsequent phase, we added support to be able to externalize the Synchrony applications with a modern user interface. And so we were able to provide a browser-based GUI and replace the typical legacy Visual Basic FAT client that was there in place. Next. So the benefits of these two phases for the customer were Synchrony was able to keep their existing infrastructure, provide a modern API, provide XML and JSON web services, have a modern GUI, and provide to their end users a GUI that still looked like the traditional GUI. So there was not much learning, but still at the same time, it was browser based and it had security, it had TLS security, and it had additional benefits such as being able to quickly externalize the transaction history. So using the GUI, customers were able to look at history for the past 6 months. These were all the features that ended up helping Synchrony to modernize the existing infrastructure. Next. So here is a diagram of the next phase of the project, which is basically to implement the full-blown switch replacement. And so in this scenario, the next step for us was, in addition to providing the JSON XML APIs and services, the next step for us was to actually provide the complete authorization. And so for that, we implemented the OmniPayments switch. The OmniPayments switch has modules in it, and it essentially provides the complete features functionality that you need for a complete switch replacement. So it has a stand-in module, it has the authorization and routing, and it has the OmniPayments database. Now, interfaces on the left side, the interfaces that come into us are from the merchants, from the POS devices, from the terminals, from the ATMs, from the e-commerce. All those are the interfaces that come in on the left side, and they come into the switch, and the switch in turn will route these messages onto Visa or MasterCard or to the Synchrony homegrown application called GE.com. Synchrony in their past was part of GE, and so GE.com is the original application that was built during the times when Synchrony was a part of GE. So with this authorization flow, now we are able to get modern interfaces, and we take the modern interfaces, we pass them into OmniPayments. OmniPayments does the authorization, does the routing, and it passes the messages back to the GE.com application. Or if they are for Visa or MasterCard, then OmniPayments will pass the messages on to Visa and MasterCard. The solution comes with a module for stand-in, and so we provide full stand-in. So in the switch replacement, the entire switch at Synchrony was a legacy implementation, and so as part of this next step in our project, what we did was replace the full switch. So we are going to at this point get into more details, and I'm going to show you some more screens and features of the OmniPayments switch. Next. So the switch has been built with the fundamental principle that we want to provide modern interfaces. We want to keep them flexible, intelligent, and we want them to be continuously available. These interfaces are to be delivered to users across any kind of device that they choose. And the other part that we kept in mind was that these transactions that come into the switch are extremely valuable in terms of the information that they have. And then these transactions can be used for processing fraud checks, and the metadata within the transactions can be used to check for historical patterns, for things of that nature. So in the next generation of the payment systems, basically we kept these fundamental principles in mind. And in addition to this, we provided GUIs so customers can monitor the entire switch and monitor every single customer interaction in real time. Next. Here are some of our customers. This is a very high level view of some of the different customers that OmniPayments has. I'll get into details on some of these customers. For example, Banamex has been using the OmniPayments products since 1996, and they've been using our solutions for encryption, for security, for driving the ATMs, for for routing transactions to government organizations, for digital signatures, for single sign-on, for a multitude of products. Synchrony Bank is one of our newer customers, and they are happy with the entire API interface and are implementing the switch. Banco Agrario is one of the leading banks in Colombia, and they have been using OmniPayments now for more than 5 years, and basically OmniPayments handles all of the interfaces for the issuing bank. Other customers are in other parts of Latin America. I'm going to touch on JCPenney. JCPenney is one of the large US retailers, and they implemented OmniPayments, and they shut down their base 24 application in about 9 months. So the entire objective was to reduce cost at JCPenney and to be able to provide modern interfaces. The project, there is a success story on this, and we've presented it in the past. We were able to shut down the entire base 24 application in 9 months, replace all the interfaces, and provide a modern solution to JCPenney. Some of our customers are processors. For example, Evertech in Puerto Rico is one of our customers, and then Carvajal in Colombia is one of our customers. In the Dominican Republic, we have processors. And then the big one that we talked about earlier is KDDI. They use the OmniPayments solution for multimedia messaging, and they were the largest deployment on 3,000 NonStop CPUs. Our partners, we are partners with HP and with IBM. Both are resellers of the OmniPayments product suite. In some cases, IBM uses our products where they have the outsourced full, where they're managing the entire infrastructure for customers. So they are reselling OmniPayments products. And the other partners we have are Visa and Tieto and Gattaca. Gattaca is one of the leading integrators in Colombia, and Tieto is from Finland. Next. OmniPayments itself is located in many countries. The United States, Mexico, Colombia, Chile. These are the major Latin American countries. Then OmniPayments is in the Caribbean. It is in Puerto Rico and in the Dominican Republic. We have customers in Europe, and we have our development centers in India. So with this entire infrastructure, we are able to provide low-cost development solutions, as well as 24/7 managed services and monitoring. Next. The OmniPayments product suite, it consists of several modules. These modules are closely, tightly integrated with the payment switch. And the benefit of this is that you can implement the functionality that you choose. So for example, if you want to implement the authorizer, OmniPayments can be implemented purely to route transactions, or it can be implemented to route and to authorize transactions. In addition to that, you can implement the stand-in module. The stand-in module is a module which will protect you if there is any network failures with the IBM, or if the IBM host, if your mainframe host is processing batch jobs and is down or is late. The stand-in module will stand in for those transactions. It will authorize the transactions based on the daily balance, or it will authorize transactions based on rules that you configure and you set up within the system. Then one of the add-on modules is the fraud blocker. The fraud blocker, the messages are passed to the fraud blocker to check if those transactions should be authorized or if those transactions should be declined. So that's another add-on module. Then as you go through the circle, you will find that we have the ATM and POS drivers. OmniPayments can support full-blown ATM and POS driving. We have the card management solution. The card management solution is used for multiple customers. It can be used in the credit, debit. It can be used for prepaid cards. And then as you go through the rest of the circle, then you find that there are different operations, utilities, and tools on the right-hand side. So we have all of the security, we have dashboards, we have a replicator to keep track of, to keep our systems active. And the entire solution ships with a UI. The UI is all browser-based. It's a modern UI. And so it's, we do not, a customer does not get exposed to the legacy tackle or those kinds of interfaces. Next. In the next few slides, I'm going to talk about our different products that are available as modules in the OmniPayments portfolio. OmniPayments is a financial transaction switch. So as part of OmniPayments, you get the modules to acquire transactions. They can be standard POS devices. They can be MPOS devices. You get the modules to authenticate. So we can basically provide the full security levels of authentication. Their password protection, PIN protection, all of that. We use the Atalas. We use different HSMs for those to do the authentication of the transaction. Then we can route and switch these transactions. We can also authorize the transactions using the local OmniPayments authorizer. On the channel side, the OmniPayments switch, it supports ATM devices, point of sale devices. It supports e-commerce channels. So all of these channels can connect to OmniPayments using the traditional ISO formats, the MPOS formats, as well as different ATM or POS formats. Now the solution is built on HP NonStop. So with the HP NonStop infrastructure, we basically get a high level of availability. We get the 5 nines, 99.999. And so this entire infrastructure is able to deliver to us with an active scenario even greater nines than the 5 nines that are advertised by HP. And essentially, large customers are implementing our solution in an active model. The solution itself is based on the SOA architecture and is modern, as we've talked in the past. And so it has interfaces for XML and JSON. And one of the features that we have in the product is the capability to route to multiple or different destination switches. So the same transaction can be sent to 2 authorizers, and we can split the transaction and we can process it in different legs. Let's talk a little bit about the acquirer products. On the acquirer side, we support the POS devices, mobile POS devices, the e-commerce channels, and we've partnered with Visa for Visa products such as the Visa 3D Secure or Visa token services. So in our wallet, if we want to store the card, we do not store the card in the clear. Instead, we store a token, and this token then is subsequently used. So that allows us to protect the card information, allows us to prevent the card information from being stored in the mobile wallet. And other fraud solutions that we have partnered with are with Visa for CyberSource. So if we want to process the transaction and send it through the system, we can pass it through the CyberSource system. CyberSource is a product that has artificial intelligence, and it has machine learning, and it tracks the fraud that is happening around the world. That is a solution that is available from Visa, and we can integrate the OmniPayments product suite with Visa CyberSource. And then we have a merchant management and a terminal management solution. In the merchant and terminal management, we provide the settlement and we provide the compensation for the merchants. Now on the issuer products, in the issuer products, we have products for Authorization, we have modules for card management. In card management, we can support debit cards, credit cards, prepaid cards, different types of cards. The whole solution, of course, is EMV ready. One of the interesting scenarios is our customer uses OmniPayments to disburse government funds. So government funds are distributed to mothers that are taking care of their children. Government funds are distributed to students for their education. And so in these different government programs, OmniPayments is used to deliver the government funds in the country of Colombia. So typically on any given day, there can be up to 3 million transactions being processed to disburse government funds. Other parts of the solution are solutions like using Visa Direct, where you can pay your friends, where you can split payments between your friends. One of the modules is the stand-in authorizer. The stand-in authorizer is used if the mainframe or the authorizer, the backend authorizer is down, then transactions will be authorized in the stand-in authorizer. Once the backend comes back up again, then the transactions will be delivered to the backend, and all databases are fully synchronized, and they are kept fully updated. The specific products that we have for retailers are used with respect to driving the POS devices or driving the mobile POS devices. And then the wallet itself is used for is a white label, and it is used to provide banking customers with a home banking interface or a person-to-person interface, payment interface. So these are the different products that are supported in the OmniPayments portfolio. And to summarize, it's the financial transaction switch, products for the acquirers, products for the issuers, products for retailers, and the mobile wallet. All of these modules are available in OmniPayments and are very easy to integrate. Next. The OmniPayments solution has been built with a modern architecture, and we've implemented multiple new solutions. So, for example, we've got support for person-to-person payments. We've got support for JSON and web services. Then we've got the domestic ISO translators. So in various places, when we need to translate the ISO from a local Mexico ISO to Visa's ISO, or from a Chile ISO to Visa's ISO, we use the OmniPayments product suite for that. We also have modules that deliver the transactions to mobile payments. And so different modules can be integrated. The fraud solutions, as I described earlier, are integrated within OmniPayments itself, as well as with third parties such as Visa. And then we have tokenization services that come from Visa, as well as an inbuilt token vault for all other kinds of tokens. And we have person-to-person payments. So the entire solution is very modern. And in implementing this for Synchrony Bank, that was one of the most interesting things that the customer liked, was the fact that they can buy the product once and can implement all of these different solutions. Next. So here is an architectural depiction of the solution. We basically have the NonStop server in the middle, and that NonStop server handles the full 24/7, 5 nines of availability. Different channels connect to us, and on the back end, we connect to Visa, MasterCard, and external services. These services can be fraud engines, can be check validation services. So within the switch itself, the flow is everything within the switch is secure. It is PCI compliant, and so cards are not stored in clear. Cards are always encrypted. Different modules within the switch They provide the different API functionality for ISOs, XML, JSON. All the transactions are routed through the switch. They can be authorized. They provide settlement. There is fraud blocking capability. And all of these transactions can then be fed to a big data engine such as Splunk. The GUI, the solution ships with the GUI, and the GUI is used to administer the entire OmniPayment switch. So the switch itself, at no point did you ever see the tackle prompt, or do you ever see the tandem NonStop kernel operating system. It's essentially all modern and it's all GUI based. Next. In this slide, we are going to talk a little about the different products that we offer for our POS merchants. So basically, we have solutions that offer the merchant enrollment. They allow a merchant to sign up for payment services. They allow us to register and activate, deactivate terminals. We have security encryption all through directly from the devices to the backend. And we also support the different terminal configuration downloads. So you can basically configure the screens, the layouts, the different types of transactions that are supported at the terminal. Next. The solution now, the way it works with mobile payments, is this is an example of how we use QR codes or how we use mobile payments. So basically, customers can scan the QR code with the mobile device, and then using the logic in the back end, the transaction can be authorized, and we can provide the authorization and the approval for the transaction to the mobile device. Now, within this, the application can be quite complex. The transaction can be built such that the QR code is mapped to a merchant, and then payments are made to the merchant, and then at end of day, settlement is done for the merchant. Next. So here is an example of the mobile wallet. This is a white label, and you can brand it with the customer's name on it, with the bank's logo on it. It basically provides the full-blown mobile solution. It handles Visa tokenization. You can have functions such as paying your friends, requesting money, transaction history, all of these different features. Next. Now, the Visa products are very interesting because at Synchrony Bank, we've implemented some of these different products. So the different products from Visa that are supported within the OmniPayments suite are the standard Visa ISO. And in addition, OmniPayments also provides support for the Visa token service, Visa CyberSource, and Visa Direct. In addition to these, we provide some of the other value-added services from Visa, but we can get into those details in another presentation. Next. So the architecture for the authorization flow, it basically, as we've described earlier, the transaction comes in through the merchants such as JCPenney, such as Lowe's, such as Amazon. It goes into the OmniPayment switch. The OmniPayment switch, it looks at the bin, etc., does the bin routing, takes a look at the different types of merchant validations, takes a look at the different types of terminal validations, and if all of it is good, then it passes the message on to the Synchrony legacy applications, and these legacy applications will then authorize the transaction. If the transaction belongs to Visa or MasterCard, then the transaction is passed on to Visa or MasterCard. Next. Now, as we've described earlier, at Synchrony, there are two NonStop servers. And basically, the NonStop server provides the highest levels of availability. So it provides us with our 5 nines of availability. And if any one of the NonStop servers is down, we are able to still process the transactions, replicate them to the other database on the other NonStop server, and process them to the other endpoints. So everything within Synchrony is high availability and provides the 5 nines of availability. Next. Now, a project of this nature is very complex, and so essentially the whole a migration strategy that has to be defined, and we worked with Synchrony to define the migration strategy, and we evolved it such that we were able to deliver OmniPayments in sprints, and with very little impact, with very little downtime, and very little with minimal windows, we were able to migrate and implement OmniPayments at Synchrony. Next. So a typical project plan. When we started the project, we had the approach of should we do this in the waterfall model, or should we do this in the agile model? And essentially what we found was that we would implement this project in the agile model, and we went through different milestones and sprints, so we were able to get Synchrony up and running within a small time of 3 months. The main goal was not to make this a large project, otherwise Synchrony would not see the benefits. And so for our customer, it was important that we implement the project in quick sprints. Next. Okay, now in the next few slides, I'm going to show you how we have implemented the product, and we'll get into some product demos. Next. So basically, OmniDash is a user interface. It's a GUI which provides a real-time transaction view. It provides information about the application as well as about system events. It's supported on the NonStop as well as the Linux server. And here are some examples of what you can see in OmniDash. So for example, you can see the transactions being processed in the last 20 minutes. You can see the transactions being processed by hour, the transactions being processed by day. The transactions are split based on their different types of transaction types. And so authorizations are separate, balance inquiries are separate. Next. Here is an example of monitoring the merchants. So we can watch what is happening within a store itself. We can see how many terminals are active, how many terminals are disconnected or in timeout state. And this gives our operators a very quick overview of what's happening within the entire application. So if something's wrong with the switch, they can get into the next level of details. Next. Now here is a connectivity map. This allows us to see which stores within the United States are having problems. And the problems could be that it is purely a network issue, it could be a timing issue, it could be timeouts. But this allows us to drill down into the store level very quickly. Next. So here is an example of the different things that you see in the dashboard. We see the acquirers, the response time for the acquirers, the response time for the authorizers, as well as system statistics. So we can see our CPU busy. We can see the amount of the page faults, the queues, all of those kinds of things are depicted. So you have an application level dashboard as well as a system level dashboard. So here in this slide, you can see the transactions as they flow through the system. And as you can see, the card numbers are masked. So the PCI protection is done. And you can watch every transaction, every card as it's being processed through the system. And you can look for timeouts. You can look for response times. Next. In case you need to analyze and see the details on a particular transaction, you click on the transaction payload, and that shows you all the details related to the transaction. Next. Now here is a PCI log, and the PCI log is purely an audit log for users that have accessed the system. And so it logs every single access to the system. And that can also be exported to Excel or to other databases. Next. Here are some examples of the terminal configuration. So this allows us to modify the attributes of a terminal, to modify the capability of a terminal. We can enable and disable transactions. Next. And of course, if there is fraud, then we can remotely disable terminals. But in addition to that, we take a look at all the different terminal configurations. So there are several options, several parameters that we can customize at the terminal level. Next. These are some screens that are used to generate the cards. And these screens can be used to generate your debit cards, credit cards. The authorizers with the card embossers will emboss the cards and issue the cards. We maintain the entire life cycle of the cards in the OmniPayments CMS application. Next. Here is a very simple example of how you can change the routing. It's configurable. There is a GUI to do it, and it's can be implemented in real time. So you can change routing information at any point you want. Next. Very good. So thank you so much for attending. If you have any questions, please send them to us, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. I appreciate you spending your time in our presentation and attending, and thank you so much. And please send us your questions.